It's an important time of the year. You are all out scouting fields looking for pests and diseases that threaten to steal yield. Crop protection is at the top of the priority list for a lot of people right now, and that's especially true here in Memphis, Tennessee at the Helena Agri-Enterprises Evolve Innovation Expo.
Live from Memphis, Tennessee via Farm Journal Studios, this is AgriTalk. This morning we begin with a conversation with Eric Cowling from Helena Agri-Enterprises. Then it's Helena product specialist Emily Swartz. And later, Dr. Michael Kenty, also from Helena. Directly following the news, Greg Henderson from Drover stops by. I'm handsome newsman Davis Michelson. And now, let's see if we've got Chip Flory.
Hey, Davis, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Yeah, there you are. There you are. I am good. I'm great. It is a beautiful day down here in Memphis, Tennessee. Yes, I said it. It's a beautiful day in Memphis. And it's
beautiful
July.
Day in Memphis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're verging on the southwestern subtropics there if you're not careful,
Exactly.
my friend. Huh?
Exactly. That's it. That is exactly right. And right now we've got a little bit of a breeze blowing. We've got some filtered sunlight that's coming down. But for the most part, I'm telling you, it is not a bad morning down here in Memphis. Hey, it is an important time of the year, and we are down here at the Helena Agri-Enterprises Evolve Innovation Expo to talk about the crop protection. I mean, if you're getting too much water, too much rain, there's not a lot that we can do about it. If you're not getting enough rain, there's not a lot that you can do about it. But if you're talking about pests and diseases, management is critically important, and that is what we are talking about down here in Memphis today. So big thanks to Helena Agri-Enterprises for sponsoring today's show and bringing us some content that honestly it's tough to get anywhere else. So it's a here we go. Hey, did you hear the news that President Biden has COVID?
I did hear that. In fact, there was a tweet out that said quite simply and succinctly, "I'm sick."
Oh, really?
Did you see that? Yeah, he sent out a 2-word tweet that said, "I'm sick." And then like 3 or 4 minutes later, it was ... of someone else doing something. It was weird. It was weird. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you something. When I had COVID,
you're at work again.
Yeah. When I had COVID, I was a little bit foggy, so I'm willing to give Mr. President a little bit of little rope here.
Right. There's all kinds of speculation out there that this is the start of the exit of President Biden from the race. This is the excuse that will be used going forward, that he is suffering from the effects of long COVID and just can't handle the job because of that. So it's going to be an interesting process to watch here over the next couple of weeks. A lot of pressure on the president right now to step aside. There's no question about that.
Well, hey, let's wish him the best, though. We can do that. We wish him good health and success.
Oh, absolutely.
That's good for all of us. It's good for all of us.
That's right. All right, let's get to the news.
Well, let's start with the weather. Heavy to excessive rainfall may bring flooding today to parts of the southern Rockies, eastern mid-Atlantic, and Arc Latex regions. Dangerous heat will redevelop Friday through this weekend into next week over much of Southern California and the desert Southwest. Dry thunderstorms continue to pose a threat for new wildfire starts across the Great Basin today and Friday. Chip, every summer it seems like they come up with some new weather threat that we're all going to die from. Now it's dry thunderstorms, huh? Look out.
Yeah, dry thunderstorms. They start a lot of fires out there. I think it's Arc Latex, not latex.
Arc Latex?
Arc Latex.
Because of Louisiana, right?
Yeah,
Arc Lutex. Private exporters reported the following sales activity: 510,000 metric tons of soybeans for delivery to unknown destinations during the 24-25 marketing year, and 150,000 metric tons of soybean cake and meal for delivery to unknown destinations during the 24-25 marketing year, Chip.
Okay, 510,000 metric tons to unknown. There's not many players out there that are going to be doing that. Mm-hmm. That looks and smells like a sale to China, a long overdue new crop bean sale to China.
Well, Chip, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, predicts the Biden administration will nearly deplete its disaster relief fund, which currently has about $9 billion, resulting in a $6 billion shortfall before the new fiscal year starts in October. President Biden requested $4 billion in emergency cash. However, immediate action is hindered by ongoing regular funding bills and other political issues.
Yeah, it's those other regular funding bills that are getting in the way of a lot of progress. You know, there's a way to get around that. Just get the get the appropriations bills done. That's the way around it. Yeah.
Well, Senate Minority Whip John Thune anticipates the new farm bill will be completed in 2025. He emphasized its importance to his states, that's South Dakota, to South Dakota's economy, but acknowledged significant differences that will likely delay its completion until next year. Thune hopes the GOP will be in the majority when the bill is finalized.
That's the big reason that they're putting it off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Finally, here, let's wrap up with this. Clean Fuels Alliance delivered a formal notice of intent to sue the Environmental Protection Agency for its failure to issue timely 2026 RFS RVOs. By statute, EPA is required to finalize volumes 14 months before the start of a compliance year. For 2026, that deadline comes at the end of October 2024, just a few months away, Chip.
All right, Davis. Hey, thank you so much. All right, let's bring in Greg Henderson, editorial director at Drovers. How you doing, Henderson?
Good morning, Chip. Fine. Thank you very much.
Man, oh man, Superior Livestock Auction ran some huge volume here. What's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Superior and Western Video Market this week collectively sold over 450,000 calves and yearlings. And as I told you earlier, the results are just wow. Steer calves, 500 to 600 pounds for fall delivery, sold just under $330 per hundredweight. Heifers at near $295 per hundredweight. That puts steer calves up about 6% or $20 to $25 per hundredweight higher than last year. Heifers up 7%. Also of note, Chip, were the premiums paid for weaning and vaccination status, program eligibility, weight, condition, and quality. Those program eligible calves that were not weaned had a $10 premium. Those that were weaned had a $12.50 per hundredweight premium. And the steers, the yearling steers, 9 to 1,000 pounds, average $252, Chip. That's $2,400 per head for an animal off grass. Those are crazy numbers, right?
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, the program eligible calves, the weaned program eligible calves, big premium there as well. Yep. Any signs of some heifer retention in there yet?
Yeah, there's a hint here. The heifer discount remains relatively wide compared to steers, near $30 per hundredweight on those 5 and 6 weight calves. So heifers are always discounted to steers. However, that spread tends to narrow during expansion phases when more heifer retention reduces availability. There's no sign that's happening at present.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. Greg, great stuff. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.
Greg Henderson, editorial director at Drovers. Get more, www.drovers.com. Come back. We're going to have a conversation with Eric Cowling, president, CEO of Helena, right here on AgriTalk.
The best talkers in ag, including you. Join the conversation on AgriTalk. Call us at 855-4-TALK-AG.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm your host, Chip Flory. Glad that you are with us on this Thursday morning. And welcome to Memphis, Tennessee. We are at the Helena Agri-Enterprises Evolve Innovation Expo. Happy to be here. Joining us right now, Eric Cowling, President and CEO, Helena Agri-Enterprises. Eric, it is good to see you again. How are you?
I'm doing well, and it's great to have you back to Memphis.
Yeah, well, thank you for having us back. It's an important time of the year. Guys are out trying to figure out exactly what they've got in the field and what they can do to make sure that they keep hold of the yield potential that's out there.
That's exactly right. If you think about the central part of the U.S. with row cotton, we've had an extremely difficult weather year from start to finish.
Yeah.
So you get to this time of year, you're always looking for that $1 million rain, so to speak.
Yep.
And fortunately, the last couple of days, we've had some of those $1 million rains in some really critical areas where we sure needed it.
Yeah. Little too much in some spots down in Arkansas. I understand that some of those spots just got smoked.
I think you always expect those in the Mid-South.
Yep.
Mid-South thunderstorm. So we deal with those things very well.
Yeah, very good. So who's here, Eric? What is the purpose of the gathering? What are you doing?
Great question. So I think you go back to the title of the day is innovation. So when you think about innovation is not just about products. Innovation is about technology. So that's our objective of the tour here today and yesterday, is to bring the people in that need to understand where the technology is today. So who's in attendance? We have growers here, we have consultants here, we have Helena personnel here, and a lot of our research and development staff that work out of this facility are here to display what they work on a daily basis.
Getting the farmers next to the research and development staff, that's got to be it just unbelievably valuable conversations that happen there.
It really is. So I had the privilege of being here yesterday for another plot tour with some other employees. It was amazing to me to watch people attract to the young talent that's in the business today. They understand the things that drive new technology. So that's the technology innovation piece for us. It's exciting to watch people that are attached to that.
Yeah. Well, and the farmers know what they need.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times research might be going a little bit off, but if you get that course correction from the farming community, boy, I tell you what, that's the kind of thing that can put the right products in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in our pipeline today, we're working on over 130 new technologies or products.
Okay.
All of those came from a customer, or they came from one of the Helena staff members that's dealt with a customer that said, if we could just do this.
Yeah.
So that really ties back to the innovation. 130 new products for us it's hard to manage, quite honestly, but it's very exciting at the same time.
Okay. Well, I will ask you, how do you manage 130 new products in the pipeline, Eric?
Well,
it's a huge number.
It's a huge number. You certainly don't expect to bring 130 new products, but if you could find a way to develop something that had a value added return on investment for a customer, you could bring half of those, you'd be extremely happy.
Yeah. So what are the guys doing? Or I shouldn't say the guys. What are the people that are here? They're out on tours looking at different plots out there right now. What are they learning?
That's correct. So we have some technology that obviously we're testing for the first time. So they're getting the first look at some of those technologies. But the thing that excites me is there's some plots that are year over year repetitive progress that's being shown. So not only are we showing immediate, we're showing things that show a long-term benefit for things we're working on. One of the interesting conversations that the teams will hear today about sustainability.
Right.
You think about sustainability, you have to show that in the field. And that's one of the exciting parts of, that's the talk of the day is sustainability.
Exactly. How much of an impact does that have on the decisions that are being made on bringing new products to the market?
Well, here's what I would tell you. I think the general consensus about sustainability is growers have been doing that forever. We're good stewards of everything that we do. When you bring it to them in a different light of here's some things that you've been doing for many, many years, like our Helena products, reduced rates. That's a big talk across the industry. That's a big talk against the political background.
Yeah.
We've been doing that for a long time. So to bring that to their attention and say, you've already been doing this, this goes in conjunction with some of the practices that you're going to already implement into your crop. As an example, with fertilizer prices, with the commodity prices today, we're not going to over fertilize.
Yeah.
You can't afford to over fertilize with a break even price being where it is compared to your inputs. So we're validating the message of what we've been asked to do.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. It's exactly what producers are looking for out there. I got to ask, EPA, with different rules, different regulations, making it more difficult on some registration issues. What is your take on everything that's happening at EPA?
Well, that's a great question. I'm not sure I know all the answers, but I will tell you that, we work in Helena with a lot of our trade organizations that have good relationships. I call it across the street with Capitol Hill. Yeah. So there's a lot of conversations that take place on a daily basis from all of our trade partners that say, understand where we are. Obviously they're looking at a global look of what happened from a regulatory standpoint, and obviously that does affect some of the things I think that are put into place.
Yeah.
But I think it's an ongoing conversation. It's about training. So if you think about the political landscape today, the percentage of legislators that's in the current positions they're in today, it's very small that's from an ag background.
Yeah.
But I will also tell you that there's some really good ag supporters there. I think the political turmoil that we've had has maybe reduced their message and the power, but they're there.
Yeah.
So we help them carry the message on what really is happening in agriculture.
Good. What is really happening in agriculture? What do you make of the current state of ag?
Well, I think that's a great question. I wish I knew the answer to it. I would tell you certainly has changed. We came through the last 3-year period of time. We've had record highs, and now we're experiencing potentially record lows compared to the cost of putting a crop in the ground. So I think we've made that big transition. I think the word of the day, and you and I are having a conversation, I think it's about concern. We need some really good yields to help the producer cash flow these businesses. When you come out of a year like 2023, I think you're almost looking at a 2 year. So you're looking at an average. The 2-year average probably is not where most people would like for it to be.
Right.
So I think it's a time of concern. Cash flows today are a big conversation amongst the grower groups that I've talked to.
Yeah.
It's hard to cash flow. It costs a lot of money to keep your equipment where it needs to be, or keep your land rent where it needs to be. There's just a lot of things that affect the day-to-day decisions, and to mind your conversation based on the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Some great opportunities out there, though. When you look at I went through Eastern Iowa just yesterday on my way down to Cedar Rapids, and my gosh, the condition of the crop out there right now, Eric. We've got some really good yield potential out there. Is that what you're hearing and feedback from the countryside?
I hear that across the country from good potential. I think you start with me looking at the conditional drought map that we've looked at for year after year. There's not many places in the U.S. it's in that significant drought, like in Iowa or some places across the Midwest. So I think it gives you hope that the crop can potentially mature.
Yeah.
Obviously, in that part of the world that you just described, they got a late start.
Yeah.
We got a really late start, but the technology of the crop and the seeds today, we do have a really good opportunity to have some really good yields, I think, across the country.
Yeah. Okay. Since we're at a Helena event, I've got to ask you, what is the role that you see Helena Agri-Enterprises playing in the ag industry going forward?
Right. Well, I think we've had this conversation a couple of different times. Look, I think our role changes as technology changes. Technology changes the way we do things. Right. There's some good technologies out there that we have to continue to stay on top of to help our producers and help our customers understand how you make money with those things. Right. It needs to be an investment, not an expense. So I always tell our teams when I'm in front of them is you need to think of yourself as a solutions provider.
Yeah.
Hey, one of the solutions that we just talked about is our teams now have to understand the financing options that are out there. There can be variability in financing options, a lot of third-party financing options out in today. Obviously, local banks have the same issue, but I think it's our job to stay on top of all things that affect what helps the grower make a yield and make a profit on his farm.
Yeah,
we're just not peddlers. We don't sell product. We have to sell services. That's awesome. A lot of focus we're trying to do today.
We have to sell services. Is that part of the take home that you hope everybody leaves here with today?
Absolutely. I hope they understand that part of the conversations that will happen in their stations, it's about technology, but it's about service that we're trying to provide to them. Our teams need to go do the research and specifically have a recommendation for each grower in each field.
Yeah. Relationships are cool again, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah. When times get a little tough, you got to start relying back on those relationships. Eric, again, thank you so much for having me down here. I certainly appreciate it, and good luck, buddy.
We appreciate you, Tim. Thank you.
All right. You bet. Eric Cowling, President and CEO of Helena Agri-Enterprises. All right. Coming up next, we're going to do more on crop conditions, talk about what's going on out there across the country. Emily Swartz, Helena Product Specialist, is next here on AgriTalk. Welcome to the Soy Checkoff Check-in. I'm AgriTalk host Chip Flory, and joining me again is the chair of the United Soybean Board, Steve Reinhard. Steve, welcome back to the Soy Checkoff Check-in.
Hey, good to be back with you, Chip.
Fantastic. How are things looking at the Reinhard farm and the rest of Ohio?
Not too bad. They're getting some rain in some parts of Ohio, and we're probably a little bit on the dry side right now, but still got some chances of rain in the forecast. But overall, I think things look pretty decent.
Okay. The stage of the corn and soybean crops, real quick, everything on schedule?
I'd say everything is very variable. We have some corn, in tassel, and there's some corn out there that probably still isn't quite up to the knee-high stage. So, wow. And soybeans, I think, are about the same. So it's really kind of a wide variety of stages out there, and hopefully we have a lot of growing season left yet. So
yeah, kind of a typical Ohio growing season is what you're telling me.
Yep. Nice April and a wet May, and then got back in there about the end of May and got things finished up. So
Gotcha. Okay. Steve, I understand that you have experience as a volunteer firefighter, so thank you for that. And a project that we have been talking about is SoyFoam. It's got to be a special investment for you. It has the potential to improve firefighting operations, benefiting communities and the environment. What kind of testing has the checkoff supported for SoyFoam?
Sure. So the SoyFoam is kind of a partnership between the United Soybean Board and the checkoff that the farmers pay in, and Cross Plains Solution. And they're out of Georgia, and they're the ones that have made the firefighting foam along with some of the other state soybean boards. And we've done quite a bit of testing with this. For example, the Chippewa Valley Technical College, they have the Phillips Fire Safety Center, and they've been testing and doing a lot of research on the SoyFoam, and it's turned out to be a very good product and very comparable to using it on large-scale testing as well. So the small-scale testing and large-scale testing all going good, and so we're seeing a lot of interest in fire departments around, especially the Midwest, to use this product.
Yeah, good. Steve, the number one thing on the list for me when I think about the SoyFoam is that we're getting those forever chemicals out of the product that firefighters, when they have to use the SoyFoam, there's going to be contact, and we need to make it as safe for those firefighters as we possibly can. That's the bottom line, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a bottom line, and we talk about this being a win-win. Soybean farmers get to provide the soy flour that actually creates that soybean foam, and so it's a win for the soybean farmers, and then for our first responders that are using the product, it's a win for them because it takes away their exposure to a lot of those PFAS chemicals, like you mentioned earlier, those forever chemicals that we have heard about, that especially in some of the different types of fires where you have to use a foam product, you have that ground potential for soil and groundwater contamination as well as human contamination.
Right. Yeah, it's such a great product. What's the overall demand potential for it?
Well, overall demand potential, we're looking at about 12 million bushels of soybeans, being used for the soybean foam product initially, and hopefully, we'll be able to scale it up over time to use more. I know we're having some research done with Natural Resources Department to where they could use it in fighting, forest fires, and that would be a huge market for that product then as well.
Yeah, very cool. Where can we learn more about SoyFoam?
UnitedSoybean.org, UnitedSoybean.org, or you can go to CrossPlainsSolutions.com, and both of those places will be good places to check out more information.
Excellent, Steve. Thank you so much, buddy. Appreciate you.
Yep. Thanks, Chip. It's always good to be on with you.
Excellent. That is Steve Reinhard, chair of the United Soybean Board. To learn more about how the soybean checkoff is working for you, visit www.unitedsoybean.org. That wraps up this edition of the Soy Checkoff Check-in. I'm Chip Flory. Now, let's get back to AgriTalk.
Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. The truth is hard to come by these days, unless you listen to AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm your host, Chip Flory. Big thank you to Helena Agri-Enterprises. We are in Memphis, Tennessee at the Helena Evolve Innovation Expo. Joining us right now, Emily Swartz. She is a Helena product specialist based in Indiana, right?
Correct, Chip.
All right.
I am based out of Indiana, but I cover Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, and the southern two-thirds of Illinois.
Talk about some variable growing conditions. You got it this year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've got everything from early planted corn that's already been sprayed with fungicide to corn that's, just past knee high.
Yeah. Isn't that something? Helena product specialist. There's a few of you here today. What exactly is a product specialist?
So really, I look at the product specialist position as a in-between position, the bridge position between the Helena Products Group here in Memphis and our field staff, our product managers that are in the field supporting our sales team, supporting our farmers and our customers. So I am that bridge between those two roles from that perspective.
Gotcha. So you're the one that's delivering the information on how this product is supposed to work out to those that are in the field.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Talk to me more about what's going on in the Eastern Corn Belt, Emily, because before we got the rains from the hurricane, it was starting to get pretty dry over there, wasn't it?
Sure. We've had a lot of variable weather, but I think the key that not a lot of people realize, Chip, is that our growing season actually started long before we planted a crop this year. So Mother Nature got a head start. We received heat units early in the season.
Oh.
We received humidity early in the season. So even our crop that was planted on time was a little behind the 8 ball when it came to Mother Nature. So then when you think about this late planted crop, it's really behind relative to Mother Nature.
So what does that do to your weed control efforts?
Oh, it's not just weed control. So our giant ragweed, our water hemp was emerging 2 to 3 weeks ahead of normal.
Yeah.
Our insect pressure, we had Japanese beetles emerging in mid-June when they don't normally pop until the 4th of July. So our insect pressure has been early. We've been finding tar spot as far south as southern Indiana in the middle of June. So everything has shifted early from a Mother Nature perspective, but yet we're still managing a crop that in a lot of situations was later than normal.
What does that do to your evaluation of an economic threshold on when you have to get out there and do something about Japanese beetles?
Absolutely. You have to be more vigilant. You have to be watching that scouting a little bit closer because you're going to have to make decisions differently this year. You're going to have to make decisions based on the fact that that Japanese beetle is hitting that bean before that bean starts to flower instead of after it starts to flower. So that defoliation is on a smaller plant. So we're seeing a lot of scouting efforts that are leading to some additional insecticide applications. The fungicide is probably the biggest decision point right now that most customers are making.
Right. And tar spot's got something to do with that decision.
Absolutely. Tar spot's a big piece of it. Also concerned a little bit about southern rust potentially coming in from Hurricane Beryl into our market space. Sure. So when you look at tar spot specifically, if I was at a customer meeting just last week and the question was asked, I want to spray one time. I only want to treat fungicide one time. What do I do? And my response back was, is this a normal planted crop that we planted in April or early May, or is this a late planted crop? Because that's going to change how I think about that fungicide application. That early planted crop, I may give it an extra week or 10 days from tassel to hit with the fungicide so I can better match that tar spot timing.
Okay.
That late planted crop, if I'm going to protect it, I better be protecting it earlier. So a little bit in the pre-tassel or right at tassel stage rather than waiting on that late planted crop.
Which increases the likelihood that you're going to have 2 applications.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. On the pests, this is something the Big Apple Joe was talking about all winter long because of the mild winter that we had. These bugs and the potential for them to survive and thrive kind of through the roof this year. And you mentioned the Japanese beetles on soybeans, but boy, if they're there in June, they're going to be there when the silks are coming.
That was the big fear for that early planted corn. In a lot of our market, those Japanese beetles were about 10 days ahead of that early planted corn. So we've got some market space, in particular on the western side of Illinois, through that central Illinois corn belt, that Japanese beetles seem to hit that area every year at silk emergence. And so that's a pretty standard practice to include that insecticide there.
So what's going on is it has changed what you need to scout for, when you need to scout for it early in the season. But that impact of the early start that Mother Nature gave the weeds and the bugs, you got to keep that in mind all season long.
Absolutely, all season long, because those pests, whether you're talking weed control that was tougher in a soybean crop, which is absolutely true this year, or you're talking insects that emerged early. Mm-hmm. So I have to be vigilant on those. Or now we're looking at diseases that are starting to hit a little earlier than normal. I have to be on top of those, because the earlier they hit the crop, the more damage they're going to do from a yield perspective. So it makes protecting that crop that much more critical in a year like 2024.
All right. So there's times when we get that August flush of water hemp out there. Might that start the end of July this year?
I would say it's probably already started.
Already started?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. On the water hemp piece, especially, partly because we're having so much difficulty controlling that water hemp this year, because the size got away from us.
What do we need to do differently then if the size did get away? What's the recovery tactic here?
So really, I think the key here is, what do we put in the tank with our herbicide? What do we put in the tank with our insecticide or our fungicide, so that the herbicide has the absolute most activity it can have? And that's when we look at our adjuvant line, when we look at things like Cohort, which we're looking at here for the first time, or we're looking at Sidewinder, Penetrator Plus. Those adjuvants that we're adding to the tank bring value. And sometimes our customers don't necessarily understand the value that adjuvant's really bringing.
Yeah. What is it? Because you're looking at one right here that I need an explanation of how they work, why they work.
So I'll give you an example. I heard from a branch manager in Ohio 2 weeks ago. So he started at his branches 4 years ago. When he came on board 4 years ago, they were using dry bagged AMS with their Liberty applications and having the traditional, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, type of response out of it from a respray standpoint. What he said to me was, he said, since I've been here, we've been using our water conditioner plus our sulfur, that higher priced adjuvant program that also is bring a little foliar nutrition with it as well. He said, I've not had the first respray in 4 years.
Really?
So what's the value of not having to respray that crop? Yes, that program may cost you more from a dollars out of your pocket in the year of application, but what is the value that additional dollar is bringing when you don't have resistance, when you don't have resprays, when you minimize that risk, you're really better ahead from an ROI or return on investment standpoint.
Got it. Okay. So the opportunities out there on this crop right now look pretty good.
Absolutely.
The markets don't.
Correct.
There's some talk, people are wondering out loud, how much more money do I want to put into this crop with the markets doing what they're doing? You still got to grow every bushel that you can. So how do you have that conversation with the producer?
It's a tough conversation to have this year, Chip. And one of the things I've learned is the rounding math that we learned in elementary school is not farmer rounding math. That $3.90 corn is $3 corn because it all rounds down instead of rounding up. But so that makes a tough environment, right? They don't want to spend anymore. They have to be watching that cost per bushel. And that's what I would encourage our producers to think about, is what is my actual cost of production, not cost per acre, cost of bushel produced.
Mm-hmm.
The more bushels you produce, the lower your cost per bushel becomes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the money-making opportunity at the end of the year, is knowing those financials on the farm is really what can help you make those better decisions when it comes to really putting the icing on the cake from a yield standpoint, because that's what our fungicide or our reproductive passes do, is that's that last bushel boost that we get at the end of the season. We know it exists. We know it's there. It's just a matter or not of whether we want to spend that extra dollar to get it.
Okay. Is there more of a boost available on corn late in the year or on beans?
So one of the things that I've always felt as in my career as an agronomist, in my career with Helena and product manager or product specialist, is I feel like beans are a consistent boost.
Okay.
Year in, year out, I'm always going to get 5, 6, 8 bushel out of my bean fungicide spray. That's consistent. Corn ebbs and flows depending on environment. So you really have to factor in that risk piece.
Yeah.
You really have to factor in that fact that Mother Nature's ahead this year. We have tar spot early. Hurricane Beryl could have brought up some southern rust to get started on us a little bit early. And I'm on a late planted corn crop, which means my yield detraction for those diseases is larger.
Right.
So my opportunity for that fungicide pass then becomes a greater bushel increase this year than maybe some other years.
Management has a greater potential to lower the cost of production on corn.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Man, that's interesting. That's interesting. I hope the southern rust doesn't become an issue.
I hope it doesn't either, because I know how devastating it could be, but I'm sitting in a market that could literally see both in the crop at the same time.
Emily, great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chip. Appreciate it.
Emily Swartz, Helena product specialist based in Indiana. We're going to talk some more about those adjuvants. We've got Michael Kenty from Helena coming up next here on AgriTalk.
Do you suffer from talking on the radio phobia? No problem. Send us a tweet at #AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm your host, Chip Flory. We are in Memphis, Tennessee at the Helena Agri-Enterprises Evolve Innovation Expo. Big thank you to Helena for sponsoring today's shows. We'll be back down here this afternoon. As I mentioned at the start of the show, it is an important topic. It's that time of the year when we are identifying some of the risks out there to yield. And as we just talked about with Emily, we need to produce as many bushels as we can with the markets doing what they're doing. All right. Joining us now, Dr. Michael Kenty, Helena product specialist in Tennessee. Michael, it's good to talk with you. How are you?
I'm just fine.
Good. Talk to me about what's been going on in Tennessee here first.
Well, Tennessee has been dry until yesterday. And early this morning, we got a much needed rain, which is going to make.
You're welcome. I brought that with me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We've been watching the insects and the disease. I call it marching up the river. But I'm also watching the territory that I have in the west part of the U.S. and New Mexico and Texas. They started the season thinking it was going to be a more droughty year. It's been getting a lot of $1 million rains.
Yeah.
So they got to farm instead of manage.
Yep.
And it's going to create a challenge.
Yeah. Talk to me about some of the challenges that are out there. We talked with Emily a little bit about pests and so on. What's actually showing up out there?
The fall armyworm popped up about a week ago in Louisiana. It has now been found. There's some right across the river, and there's probably not enough insecticide available in the channel and on the distribution channel. The basic manufacturer may have it, but until we get it, it's not there. But we're working on getting that in. So we're telling everybody use an adjuvant. Make sure every drop counts, because if you don't use an adjuvant, you may miss it. You may have to retreat, and it's this year with the commodity prices that's too much of a risk.
What does the adjuvant do?
The adjuvant will. It depends on the adjuvant, and it depends on the insecticide chemistry or fungicide chemistry you're pairing it with. With some, you want penetration through the canopy to get to where the problem is down at the bottom. Others, you want spreading to get across the leaves. Some you want both. And with some insecticides, the organophosphates and carbamates, there's not as many as there was historically, but they do not like high pH. Because if you spray in a pH over 5.5 with one of those, they start breaking down immediately. And so you use a buffering agent, which Penetrator Plus has that, to drop the pH, the oil in it spreads. You get deposition through the canopy and you get the best of both worlds. And hopefully you don't have to retreat.
Yeah, and that's the big deal. You don't want to have to go out and do it a second time.
No, I don't mind because I make more money, but it is a bad, and I understand the grower trying to weigh the odds. Where do I want to spend my money?
Yeah.
So if you can do it right one time and walk away is much better than having to do it again or again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's when I think about the things that a guy can do to increase his odds of a positive return on what they're doing out in the field, using the right adjuvant is right up the list.
Yes. But one thing, it's more and more they're starting to pay attention to this, but I tell our sales reps as to please pass on to their customers early in the season, test their water. The water that's used is a spraying source.
Okay.
I know one single location that this grower has good water. I would argue he needs needs a spreader.
Yeah.
But from the fixing the water, he's okay. But everybody else is either too high pH, too low pH, hardness, not hard. And you fix that, and then you figure out what you're trying to do, and then you prepare the right adjuvant with that chemistry to maximize performance.
Okay.
And the basic manufacturers are starting to pay attention, which has been very good. Instead of pushing uphill, we're kind of running level now.
This is interesting. Get the water right.
Yes.
Get the right adjuvant.
Yes.
And what's step 3 in this?
Choose the correct herbicide, insecticide, or fungicide. Whatever your pest is, you need to choose the correct active to do the job. Because maybe this costs too much and this might control it. It's cheaper. It's going to cost you more in the long run.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's really interesting. And you got to do everything that you can to make sure that it's going to work the right way the first time. Talk to me. Helen has been nice enough to bring us down here and so that we can talk about some of these issues. Talk to me about some of the products that are available through Helena.
Well, from the adjuvant standpoint, depends on where you are. We have some people just planted 2 weeks ago, so they're still thinking herbicides, not a far cry from fungicides and insecticides. But I would say the vast majority from the Alabama line to probably Phoenix, and then moving north, and then also moving up the East Coast, is going to be more fungicides and insecticides. So depending on the chemistry will be the choice. Dynamic, we'll see a lot of it being used in the south and the southern part of the eastern business unit. Will be used Penetrator Plus for either insecticides or fungicides. As you move north, they use some Pen Plus, they use Dynamic, and then with most of their aerial sprays in the northern business unit, you're moving to Sidewinder.
Gotcha. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today, buddy. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
That is Dr. Michael Kenty, Helena product specialist in Tennessee, and obviously here in Memphis at the Helena Agri-Enterprises Evolve Innovation Expo. Davis, we're going to be back here this afternoon, and
awesome.
We're going to be talking. We're going to continue the conversation about some crop protection, but we're also going to talk about what's going on in the markets. Jody Lawrence is going to be with us. We met Jody for the first time at this meeting last year. We've had him on a couple of times since, and you won't believe who I saw walking around down here.
Who's that?
Sean Haney.
Sean Haney?
Sean Haney's here, so Sean's going to join us this afternoon as well. We're going to have a great time talking markets, talking about what's going on in the industry. And don't forget, join us tomorrow morning. I'll be back in the bunker for the free-for-all here on AgriTalk.